You know, all of us feel lucky to be alive, but rarely do we feel it intensely. It's not something we carry around as a kind of steady state part of who we are. This sense of, wow, I'm alive, I'm alive. And that sense of aliveness, a lot of us have had, maybe a near miss death experience where some car went hurtling right past us on our bicycle, like an inch away or something, and we have a moment where we're like, oh my God, like I almost was just killed there. Or it could be a prolonged illness where it looks like it's lights out and then we get a second lease on life. Yeah, people have those kinds of extraordinary, intense experiences, and then sometimes, maybe for the rest of their life, they are able to kind of hold on to that joie de vivre, or whatever the French term is, of like, yeah, baby, like I am so alive, thank you. Okay, but basically over time we get ground down, we find ourselves in this kind of sludging, joyless, magicless, I don't know, resigned, life is suffering kind of idea. And by the way, I'm going to have a video about suffering because I got some thoughts about that. Okay, so one of the things that I have thought through, and I don't think it through every single day, but it's something that informs, it's at the bottom of this feeling I have, this great joy I have to be alive, is not anything that's happened to me in my life or anything having to do with like my physical form or my current breathing or, the experience of being alive right now, because that's a transitory experience. There are times when it feels kind of shitty maybe to be alive. You're going through some really horrible stuff and it doesn't feel great or whatever. But rather be like completely subsumed into the mix of stuff that's either kind of bringing you up in a kind of manic euphoria or bring you down in a kind of depressive state, which is the roller coaster that people are on. You want to untether your sense of wowness around being alive from anything that's necessarily happening in your life right now because you're alive, okay? So what would that be? Well, okay, so I'm going to tell you a little story, and this is a story that you probably could tell yourself, but sometimes it's good to have somebody refresh something for us that we know is true, that we could say for ourselves, but we're just not, thinking about it, caring about it, valuing it at the moment, and maybe it's something that we might if somebody refreshed it for us. So that's what I'm going to do. Okay, so I'm a science-based guy. Science doesn't have all the answers, but it's the best way we have of comparing our ideas about reality against reality and sorting out the stuff that's fantasy and fiction and, made up bullshit that makes us feel good about ourselves. So I'm a science-based guy. Could be wrong, but here's the story of you simply existing, okay? The fact that you exist at all is such a miracle. It is so improbable. It required so many things to happen absolutely perfectly over such an extended period of time that the fact that you exist right now, whether you're feeling shitty or great, it's such a miracle because it's so improbable. If you could see that you just playing on the field of life, okay, on this tiny little hair, like paper thin wedge between everything that's died already and everything that's waiting to exist, to come into existence, and here you get to be. You get to be on this tiny paper thin line of the now existing, in the now, the only thing that actually is real right now, and you're existing right now. It's freaking mind-blowing. It's fantastic. Okay, so from what scientists tell us, there was this proto cloud-like thing that kind of congealed together and began to form the planets in the solar system. And it took billions of years for crap, meteorites, gases, soupy crap to begin to form a planet Earth with, a molten core made out of iron or something that could shield the Earth from cosmic rays and begin to provide a shield for an atmosphere. And so for billions and billions and billions of years, the crap rained down just to get to the beginning of something that could even possibly have any life on it. And then billions more years went by where the thing cooled down and, maybe some water formed or maybe not, I don't know. But apparently there were these little proto acids, I forget they were called, little amino acids or whatever. And the idea is that maybe lightning stroked this like proto soup of amino acids or whatever, and just the right way, just the right temperature, just the right voltage, just the right other minerals in the area or whatever, and boom, like something began to be kind of like a life form, but maybe not really, but it was life-like. And then that crap went on for another billion years, okay? And then these things began to reproduce from cell structures formed, and you had one cell, and then you were able to reproduce to two cells, etc. And then we go billions more years, and these little life forms like worms develop. I mean, I know this must sound boring, but I make myself hold on to this stuff, okay? Little worms, it goes on, and they become little, shrimp or whatever, brine shrimp, and then these other things start making oxygen in the ocean, and then billion years go by, and there's enough oxygen that's get made by, I forget the name of those things that are in the ocean that make the oxygen, and there's enough oxygen or whatever that, an organism can begin to come up out of the soup, and it can go onto the land, and there's enough oxygen in the air to be able to do like oxygen transfer through these, proto lungs, and okay. So then there's these evolution of species, and there's six mass extinctions, okay? So almost everything gets wiped out, like 6 times, and different kinds of organisms that look like they're gonna be the winner, they get killed off, and, this one you never would have thought, like some kind of mouse that lives underground because it's so, vulnerable to being eaten by something that has to live underground like 90% of the time, then it comes out and runs out and gets a little something and goes back underground or whatever. And that little mouse just happens to have what it takes to live through, say, this massive volcanic eruption that's accompanied by some massive meteor impact at the same time or whatever. And it's able to go underground and tough it out. Okay, and now this whole new predominant species comes up, and this goes on like billions of years, and over and over again we speed on up to the freaking human, pre-humans, and there's like branches of humans, and some of them ultimately, I think Homo sapiens, theories have it, that's way down the line of many failed experiments in sapiens, but Homo sapiens has this kind of weirdo thing with their mind where they begin to imagine things that aren't real, and they begin to think, conceptually, and then they imagine something like a tool, or they imagine something like we now imagine money has got some kind of reality to it or whatever. And so from this kind of story-making mythological capacity, Homo sapiens wins the battle for existence, and Neanderthal drops off. We got 2% Neanderthal. Okay, bring it on forward and forward and forward and forward and forward and forward. Every single organism, from the very first little worm or proto-cell thing up until you, had to survive. It had to reproduce, pass its genes on to the next biological organism, and from the soup to you, unbroken success of winners. all winners. Every single one, straight up winner. That had what it took when the vast majority of other creatures did not. So right up to your parents. It's a story of millions and millions and millions of successful ancestors. Up to your two parents, and now your father. Probably your mom wasn't the first woman he made love to. He probably had a few orgasms before you got conceived. And you know, there's like 300 million sperm in every one of those orgasms, and hundreds of millions of sperm in every one of the orgasms of every guy that was preceding your father, going back. And then your father probably had, you know, many, many orgasms before finally he made love to your mom. And then, you know, boom, there was that moment of creation. So like that moment of you becoming you with your package of stuff, your super survivor DNA, your mind-blowing capacity to like create the universe and to feel and think and imagine, all the stuff you take for granted that's prior to whether or not you're rich, prior to whether or not you got a relationship, prior to anything, your simple existence. You're a superhero, okay? You are the best of the best over billions of years. And so, you know, I get it. I get that my gift of life, my opportunity to be in this, I call it a skin suit here, at whatever level of proficiency, wealth, gorgeousness that it gets to play at, it's getting to play. And there's a whole lot of dead creatures and creatures yet to be born that would like to be right here, right now. I get that. I get that every minute of every fucking day. And it informs this intense gratitude that I have to be alive. That is a big component of how you want to walk around in this world. If you want to be fully alive, free and clear, you got to recognize what a gift just your simple existence is. And I know I'm a little bit, intense about it, but I can't help myself being lived like that. So thanks.